Scribble notes, scribble notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me, with or without a degree. Don't question my intensity, bravery. Similar to agencies that want to see you fold. So just pray for me. Yeah, Einstein with my energy.
Welcome to the Scribbled Notes podcast. How is your day going? I'm super excited to talk to you.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk to you too. My day has been pretty good so far.
Hey, we need good days.
Yeah.
anyone listening, you have a good day.
Yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourself for the listeners so they know who I'm talking to?
Okay, my name is Maddi. I have a YouTube channel called BooksWithMaddi where I talk about books and reading and all things like that.
Hey, so let's start from the beginning. How did you get on YouTube? What made you decide books and reviewing books? What made this all start? How did this all happen?
Basically, the global pandemic that we're experiencing was the catalyst for my YouTube channel. I was really bored in quarantine and I was like, I want to talk to somebody about books, but I'm stuck in my house. So I might as well make a YouTube channel and find a lot of other people who like to talk about books.
And how has that been? Because I know for myself, I started my podcast during the pandemic. So how's it been for you?
It's been great. It's very different doing a YouTube channel when you're at home 24/7 and then transferring to doing a YouTube channel when you have, an actual life again. So that's definitely been a transition, but it's still fun.
Yay, we like to hear it. So you've done a ton of videos so far. I was checking out your channel. You have a really cool style and all that. How do you create that? How do you make that? When you're setting up for a video, how do you create the product that we get at the end?
I don't know, man. I didn't know I had a style. Everything is very precarious when I'm filming. Everything is on the verge of being about to fall over. But it's not. There is no style. There's no secret. It's just pure chaos. I have a tripod finally, and it's really the backbone of my channel. That tripod is holding everything together.
It's so interesting because I think you know what I mean. Some people's videos look very different than each other. People have their own unique way of doing it. So it's always interesting to see how did you come up with that? And for that to be well, I'm just existing at the same time.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
How have people been? How's been the audience and the reception of the channel?
It's been great. It was pretty unexpected because YouTube is kind of a tricky platform. I really didn't know much about it when I started, but I have some really great viewers who just mean everything to me, and they're so nice literally all the time. It means literally everything to me.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. How is it growing a fan base? How has that been? I feel that's something that's interesting over the last year and a half.
It's scary because, I started it as just something while I was in quarantine. I wasn't really planning on continuing it after, I had my life back and everything, but it really was growing at a pace that I didn't expect. So I just kept going with it. And the growth is definitely intimidating to me because I have this thing that I call 30 subscriber energy that I have where I just feel like I'm talking to 30 people and I look at the views and it's okay, it's not 30 people anymore. I gotta get my act together.
I love that. 30 people energy out here. So that's an amazing piece. Being able to have fans. I know the first time I had people listening to my podcast regularly, I was this is weird. This is interesting. Yeah, I enjoyed it. You just don't expect it. And how do you kind of I guess I'd say, how do you stay in touch with all of them? How do you do you respond to comments in the comment section? Things like that. I'm really interested because as people grow, it's you get so many more people that are contacting you or reaching out. So it's just so much more engagement.
It is like overwhelming sometimes. I mean, obviously it's not like a flood of comments, like I'm not that big or anything, but it is something that I have to like carve out some time for, because I love to read every single comment and respond to every single one. And I miss some every single time there's a video, and I feel so bad about it because they mean so much to me every time somebody takes time out of their day to comment on one of my videos. So it's just like carving out some time and stuff like that. YouTube comments is the main place that I connect with people because I'm not super active on other social media. So that's basically where I'm at.
No, that's really cool. It's really cool because I know how that kind of feels when you have like a lot of people who are you're just trying to do everything at once, and it's really cool that you take time to do that. So let's talk about books a little bit, because I'm really interested in your opinion, being someone that talks about books in front of other people.
Okay.
Or reviews books in front of other people. I feel like a lot of people don't try to do that. What was on your like top 5 list last year of books that came out? What were your like top 5 favorites?
What were my top 5? I just made a video about this. I need to know this information. Why can't I remember? I'm panicking. Oh my gosh.
It's just off the cuff, you know?
I just made it. This is so embarrassing. Okay, my favorite book of the year was The Wicked King by Holly Black. I don't know if you're familiar with that that series. That was my favorite of the year. And then there was a bunch of romance that I loved. Actor Age by Talia Hibbert was one of my favorite romances. The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren was another favorite. Those are some of my top ones that I can remember.
What made them kind of stand out? I know you're gonna talk about it in your YouTube video, but what makes them stand out to you? What makes a book really like work for you?
I mean, it's very different, like genre to genre. I mean, for fantasy, a lot of books can get really repetitive. So I like, when authors can add in something that I haven't really seen done before. They have like a lot of nuance to their characters and have really like, in-depth world building and things like that. For romance and in contemporaries, it's all about, making characters that you can really connect with, that you can relate to and things like that. And kind of, I think with romances and contemporaries, it's a little bit trickier because you don't have the fallback of like a fantasy world. You have to make people intrigued in what they already experience every day. And so I find that really powerful when authors are able to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I think last year I read Elantris. Elantris was my favorite book of the year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just enjoyed Elantris so much. And Brandon Sanderson, I think he did a really good job. It kept it really fun for me. I heard it was also an audiobook. I also got the dramatic version of the audiobook that he put out. And it's basically like just a movie, like literally a movie. It's just
wow.
It's an insane.
Is there a full cast?
Yes, a full cast. People are
Whoa.
voiced. It is insane.
I have not heard of this. I need to get on that.
It's insane, but it was so much fun. And I got my wife to also read with me. So she read the whole, like she listened to the whole thing too. And it was like really cool.
That's so fun.
I was just like, just did such a good job. Just made it fun. Yeah. It was so interesting. I think the concept was really interesting. A lot of things that like inspire like my writing and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like you create so much. Yeah, books like some stories have really touched me over last year, but that was one of them. What has been a story that's really stuck with you that you read last year?
Let me reference my bookshelf. I definitely have like a really good answer, but I'm just, you know what? Okay, I have a great one. So I always bring it back to Talia Hibbert. She's one of my favorite authors. She has the Brown Sisters trilogy, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, and Actor Age, Eve Brown. They're all romances. And all 3 characters are just so diverse. They're all have some kind of nuance to them that makes them really like realistic characters. So in the first book, Chloe Brown has fibromyalgia, which is a chronic illness that I also have. And so that was really special to read like that. And in the second book, Danny Brown has anxiety. She's bisexual and she's a women and gender studies major. And I'm a women and gender studies major. So I just had this really strong connection to these books. I absolutely love Talia Hibbert's writing. I think she's one of the best authors that I have read in the past like 3 years. Those stories are so special to me, and I reread them constantly because they're just amazing.
Yeah, I think there's something about a book that really just like stories that really stick with you because they hit home in a different way. Um, that's why I really just enjoy. So to change gears.
Okay.
I should have like sent you this. Like I should have asked you this in advance. What was your least favorite book? What was your least favorite book of the year?
Okay, I have a couple. I only gave 3 books 1 star last year. I'm trying to pick the least controversial. Okay, so there's a book called Disgrace by Jm Kwetsi. It's like one of those kind of like modern classics. And I had to read it for my world literature post 1945 class. And it basically took place in post-apartheid South Africa. And I expected it to deal with like those racial tensions, but the main character was like this white professor who just had all terrible opinions about everything. He was just this cocky, ignorant man who like would manipulate and gaslight his female students into like sleeping with him. And it was just horrible. It was just a very, very bad book. And it's won like the Nobel Prize for Literature. And like the author has won, I think it was the Booker Prize. And I just couldn't, it made me so upset to read that book and have to read it for school and everything. I wrote a whole essay about it for school and I got real heated about it. It was just a really yucky book. And then like
that's like crazy. It's award winning and it's like, that looks terrible.
Yeah.
But who knows how that stuff gets awarded.
Right.
So when it comes to fantasy, let's talk fantasy a little bit. What are some of the things that you've seen a lot of in books that you think are like kind of overdone or have had their time?
There's your classic love triangle. It's done. We're done with the love triangle. We don't need any more love triangles. I think the I'm not like other girls trope is just like super toxic. Done with that. I think both of those are super overdone. Also, like the like damsel in distress, that one's a little bit older, but you see it coming back every now and then. Like the strong man has to come in and save the day. I think those ones are really overused. I think that's one of the things I really liked about the Folk of the Air trilogy, The Cruel Prince and the Wicked King, was how Holly Black kind of twisted the roles of Jude and Carden, the main male and female characters.
Yeah, you even just listing some of those, I was like, that makes sense. Like who if you get a love triangle nowadays, like just think about a story that has a love triangle.
Right. Just you don't want it.
It's like why are we doing this still?
Yeah.
There's like thousands of them. A lot of them are done better in other cases. What are some of the things that you were most like surprised by when you're reading, like different concepts that authors might have explored that you just didn't expect? We interrupt this episode to talk a little bit about Sun Scholars. Sun Scholars is a nonprofit committed to improving educational equity and college graduation rates for those students who have experienced foster care or adoption. Sun Scholars, Inc. is dedicated to serving Connecticut's former foster youth with a student-first mentality. Their goal is to support individuals and help them reach their best outcomes. If you'd like to learn more about Sun Scholars or how to donate, check out their website, sunscholarinc.org. That's sunscholarinc.org. Now, back to the show.
That's a good one. I think world building is always a really exciting thing to read because it has so much space to be whatever the author wants. So I think that's always really intriguing, especially when there's like some kind of magic system or something like that that's just like totally new. It's always can be really surprising to learn about whatever they're putting into the world. I'm thinking about like how Holly Black, Leigh Bardugo, and Sarah J. Maas all write to the same kind of audience, but all have very different worlds and very different characters. And I always think that's cool, like to compare and contrast authors like that who are writing to the same people, but are able to, create nuanced and diverse worlds and characters.
Yeah, that's like a really good point. That stuff really matters. Like the world building can do so much to differentiate a story. and there's so much space to be creative within world building that I think it's like if a book is too similar or if it follows what everyone's doing or everyone's already done, it really diminishes how like the reading experience overall, because you just don't get as much. You don't get anything new or fresh.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was gonna ask another question about a very specific book, and being like, have you? It was gonna be. I'm not gonna ask the question, but it's gonna be like what new author have you found this year that you never read before that you were blown away by? That's very specific, and I was like, that is a.
I have an answer if you want one.
Oh, okay. Let's answer it then, because I wasn't gonna. I was like, that's just putting her on the spot.
No, I have one for this. I'm prepared. I recently read Anxious People by Frederick Bachmann. He wrote A Man Called Uwe and Beartown, books like that. And I have a bunch of his books. I've just never gotten around to reading them. And finally, I'm in a book club with my friends and we read Anxious People and I was blown away by it. Like, I think it was, you know what, this is great transition. This was one of my favorite books of the year. I think it was like my second or third favorite of the year. So to go back to that question. But I loved his writing style. I think it was amazing, and amazing also for a translation, because I believe he's Swedish. And so for it to be translated so well was also really, really cool. And I was just obsessed with the way that he wrote characters and the way that he wrote stories. I will definitely be checking out more of what he has written in 2022.
It's awesome. See, so it worked out. That was great. I'm always interested because I take a lot of recommendations as someone who does not read nearly as many books as probably you do. I take a lot of recommendations about what to read from like reviewers. Oh, yeah. How do you think the role of reviewer, where do you think that plays as far as informing the rest of the audience? Because there are so many books to read. There is so much to get through. What do you think?
That's really true. That's such a scary thought to have, that like I'm actually influencing people's reading tastes, because I started doing it just like talk to other people and have like a conversation, but I see people actually be like, oh, I'm gonna pick that up, and I'm like, oh, good luck, like I hope you like it. I think it's really cool to find some like another reviewer or somebody who has like the same taste as you, and then like kind of rely on their tastes. And I find like it really cool to be that for some people. I find it like such a huge honor to potentially be that for some people. I think that book reviewers are really important and really critical in the publishing process. And so to have any influence over what somebody reads is a very high honor for me.
Yeah, it's a major piece. And I think you touched on something really quickly that really matters. Like even just talking to people about different books that you have, and just like friends, and before you even started a channel, it's like you're making an influence on someone's decision because people are hearing you. And then you get a channel, and now you're like even more so. People are like really going to you. So it becomes really awesome and really important, because reviews really help kind of curate the audience.
That's so true. Yeah.
There's a huge skew. Like the more everyone's gonna cover the big books, the big ones that you don't really need marketing for, but reviews are really how you find out about these other books that exist and these other authors that might not be Brandon Sanderson. And you can be like, oh, that's a really, really good author. I'm gonna keep picking up their books. So I think that's important.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So in terms of reviews, how do you go? What's your process for how you star rate or however you rate books?
Well, actually, there's a booktuber. I believe her name is Book Roast, I think, and she has this spreadsheet that she's created called Cowpile. It's CAWPILE, and each of those acronyms stands for a different aspect of the book. And when you put in, okay, this is so complicated, but go ahead. C stands for like characters. So you would rate the characters like 1 out of 10, and A is atmosphere. You put it in a spreadsheet 1 out of 10, and it does some magical like math wizardry and calculates what it suggests your star rating should be. And I literally depend on that for my ratings, because it really helps me like when I'm like in between, I'm like, oh, is it 2, is it 3, or like 3 or 4? It helps me narrow down like and think about, okay, what were the characters like, what was the atmosphere like, what was the writing like. And she has it on her Booktube channel. She just came out with the 3rd version of it, which now has half stars. And yeah, I download it every year on my Google Drive, and I use that, and that's kind of what I depend on for how I read my books.
That is so cool.
It really is. I love spreadsheets, so I'm like so obsessed with it.
Like I would have never even thought to do that. Like that's just such a cool rubric. And with the
Yeah, she's
already
an
behind
actual
it.
genius.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because rating books is also like a really interesting it's a really interesting process for a lot of people. I know from some people who I've like had beta read and stuff, they've told me about their process for rating, and it's always different. And I think that's also important for people to know. It's like you gotta know how someone's rating their book, because if not, you're kind of going off of whatever random opinion someone might have.
And also some people are more like they want their characters to be like the center, and other people want the like world building and the writing to be the center. So it's also it heavily varies based on people and their moods and their bias and everything. There's so much that goes into it.
I know that it's like that's so like crazy, but it is like it's so important, and it's so underrated how important it is in so many aspects of like our own human experience.
Exactly,
a review of like products on Amazon makes a huge difference. If you're like, I don't know if I want this microphone, you're gonna read reviews, and you're gonna determine whether or not you want the microphone.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's so true.
It's so important.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What do you have coming up? Like what's your schedule like for taping and recording?
Well, I just did at the beginning of January, I do like a week long of a video every day. So I'm taking a little break. And then I have my reading journal coming up. I posted last year and people really liked that video. So I have like a reading journal tour of 2021 coming up. And I want to do a lot more stuff with journaling because it's a really important part of my reading and just like creative process. So I have an Instagram that I posted literally twice on, but it's called Journals by Maddi, and I do custom journals for people and stuff like that. So that I think I'm gonna like expand that a little bit. That's my main venture next.
Hey, that's awesome. And where can people connect with you online?
I'm BooksWithMaddi everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and it's Maddi. There's no E, no Y.
Hey. So what advice do you have? Because I think with starting something, starting a channel or having any success online, what advice do you have for people who are starting out?
That's hard. I don't know. I think I would figure out like why you're doing it at first, because if you're doing it for like the numbers and like the potential like monetization or stuff like that, it's not going to be as satisfying. It's not going to be as fulfilling. I think, it's easy to get really caught up in the numbers and everything. It's easy to compare yourself to other people, be like, I started before them. Why are they growing faster than I am? And it can get really toxic. It can really affect your own like mental perception of yourself. So I think figuring out why you're doing it and realizing, okay, I'm doing this because I love to talk about this. I love to share this with other people, and other people like me sharing it with them. It doesn't matter what the numbers are. It doesn't matter how much I'm growing and how much that person over there is growing. I think that's like the biggest piece of advice that I would have, because it's so easy to get caught up in that cycle of just like, why am I not growing? Why am I not growing at the pace I want to?
Yeah, it's like you have to be patient with yourself. You have to understand what your reason, your why, like you said, like understand why, understand why you're doing it. And it's really cool because there's so many people who think like, oh, you're just going to be super successful as soon as you start. Like, you'll just be at whatever. And I think often you lose sight of like, why did you want to do this to begin with? And why does this matter to you at all? Because you're obsessed or you're thinking about the wrong thing. I also think that is you get to appreciate all the people that come into your circle or that you get to interact with more when you're actually understanding why you're doing it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
So for someone that's already going, what do you think is, as someone that's like all in YouTube doing it, what do you think is next? Because I know some people have talked about algorithms changing and the what type of content. YouTube added shorts now that you can have on there. What do you think about the landscape?
I have no idea. I am the most removed from that as possible. I have no idea. The algorithm confuses me. I have no idea how anything works or functions. I'm just living my best life. I'm just trying to get through. Shorts are cool. I haven't explored them quite yet. I'm just now trying to get into TikTok. So like I need to take it one step at a time. So I don't know. I have no idea. I think the algorithm is insane, and that's like 90% of people's success is just if they hit the algorithm in the right way.
Yeah, it's like wild. Like I was talking to somebody that has a channel, and they were saying how like they just posted at the right time on the right day, and then all of a sudden in their whole video, everyone's seeing the video. And I was like, how? And they're like, this happened, and then I posted it. And I'm like, that just wild. Like the luck sometimes. As far as staying on track in time management, what do you do for that? What's your schedule like for that? Because that's another barrier for a lot of people, just managing their time.
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle. Like I said earlier, with transitioning from being home 24/7 to having school and life and everything. I think it's about like the intention, like finding the space in your life that can give a little bit, and taking that time out intentionally to do what you love, to either film a video or edit or read or whatever it is that you want to do, and understand that you have to like sacrifice some other things. When I started reading seriously, I had to sacrifice like, oh, I don't get to watch as much TV, or I don't get to do this as much, and when I started doing YouTube seriously, the same thing happened. I think especially with YouTube, it's about finding the most convenient times for you to film, most convenient times for you to edit, and the most convenient times for you to post, and then kind of schedule your YouTube career situation around that.
Yeah, it must, like, for anyone listening, it sounds like you have to do a lot, you have to schedule, you have to be intentional, but it's not all that bad, I would say, right? Is it all that bad?
Oh no, I mean, I feel so lucky to be able to do it from home. Like, I know so many people who would want to be in this position instead of having to do, whatever they have to do at work. I feel really lucky to be in this position.
No, it's awesome because it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work up front. It is, time management is so crucial in so many aspects of our lives, especially if you want to take something on, or if you're becoming more and more serious about something. I talk to a lot of authors and writers, and one of the things that they talk about is managing time, is finding space to write and finding opportunities to edit and go through their processes. And I think no matter who I've spoken to, everyone's really said that you have to make time for it, and you have to figure out what works in your schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we're coming up on the end of our time, but I want to ask, when you're deciding topics, because this is like the last phase of this, when you're deciding topics for what you're going to talk about, what you're going to post, how do you curate that? How do you decide that? Because coming up with ideas every single time you need a video can't be easy, right?
It's not easy all the time. I think something really nice about the way that Booktube is kind of set up is a lot of people expect at the beginning of the month for a TBR, or like a to be read, so like what you're going to read throughout the month, and then a wrap up at the end of the month. So it's like 2 ideas already in the bag. Like, I know what I'm going to do at the beginning, at the end. And there's lots of, consistent things that you can do with Booktube, book hauls or like unboxing or things like that. Other than that, I have no idea. I try to think of like what I would want to watch, like what I would want to see other people doing, and then try to, do that to the best of my ability to try to make something somebody would want to watch also. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do going into this year, is like thinking what I would want to watch and then trying to make that for other people.
That's really cool. How many videos do you like shoot in advance? Like what is that schedule like for you? I know I do for instance, I do a ton of podcasts. Like I'll do 5 or 6 podcast episodes in a week, and then that'll give me a month of content. And,
that is so smart.
And then I'll do a bunch weekly. What's your process like?
My process is worse. It is like sometimes day before, day of, I'm supposed to post, like filming, just the most chaotic. You know what? I'm gonna be better this year. I'm gonna do that. I've learned something from this podcast. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try to like bulk film videos. I get burnt out really easily from like talking. So like, I don't know. I'm gonna try to figure out a way to like drink extra caffeine. Like, I don't know, do something to make myself keep going so I can. The lighting is also a big thing during winter. Is like I've like 12 to 2 is like the only time I can film, and then it's over. Then the sun's like, I'm out.
Yeah, then it's over. Then it's definitely over. It's super slow without the lights. No, I think the scheduling thing. I remember I had talked to one of my friends. He also does podcasts, and I was like, "How are you keeping up with this podcast thing? Because it's like so quick. A week will just go by, and then you have to post something."
Exactly.
And he was just like, "Oh, I do a whole bunch of them in the beginning, so I don't have to worry about it. Like, so I'm never late." And I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, you're doing
that is
right.
Genius level thinking right there. Because like when I just did that week of posting, like those videos were filmed the day before they were posted. Like those, you got like raw content right there. Like that was as it was happening.
Live.
Yeah, pretty much live.
No, that's awesome. But you get it done, which really matters.
I try my best.
Any final words? Any last impressions you want to leave on the listeners? This has been awesome just to talk to you and chat it up real quick.
I'm just so grateful to be on this. This is an amazing opportunity. I can't wait to listen to more of your podcasts because this has been such an enjoyable experience. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And for everyone listening, I know you probably took something away from this. Have a wonderful day. Keep your energy high, and peace out.
Scribble notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me, with or without a degree. Don't question my intensity, bravery. Similar to agencies that want to see you fall. So just pray for me. Yeah, Einstein with my